My name is Nicole Straub, and I am a person in long-term recovery. And I have 12 years sober. In September, God willing, I'll have 13. And I have been a recovery coach for 10 years this year. And in 2019, I started doing alcohol and drug counseling. So I am certified in the state of Michigan as an alcohol and drug counselor. And what they don't know is the only reason I did it is so that I could better learn the language of counseling so that I could teach them in their language about recovery coaching. And I do love counseling, and there's a lot about it, a lot that I do enjoy, and a lot of recovery coaches do move on to becoming counselors, and I do love it. But recovery coaching and the boots to the ground, working with those clients one on one is my favorite thing to do. And so, like I said, a lot of my presentations are geared towards teaching counselors more about coaching, and also teaching recovery coaches a little bit more about counseling so we can speak their language and they can speak ours. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that I've come across with recovery coaching is coordinating and coordinating with the counselors so that we can all work together and give the clients the best service they can. So um, let's see, I'll get my presentation up. And as I do that, I was wondering, would you guys do me a favor and would you put in the chat what state you're in? I'm curious about what state you're in. All the different states that we have.
Let's see. CT in the house, Iowa, Wisconsin, California, Arizona, Georgia,
Awesome.
Colorado, Florida. We have London in the house,
I love that.
Rhode Island.
Welcome.
Wonderful.
Gosh, London, what time is it in London?
It's like 5 hours, 6 hours ahead of me here.
Is
Five,
it?
5 past 3 in the afternoon.
Oh, 3 in the afternoon. Okay. Well, that's more convenient than like 3 in the morning, right? So, all right. So I'm excited, you guys, to show you this presentation. My name is Nicole Straub. I'm a certified alcohol and drug counselor, certified peer recovery coach, and a recovery coach professional facilitator through CCAR. And I've been a CCAR facilitator for 6 years now, and I've trained over 300 coaches. And it's pretty exciting if you are not a facilitator. Get with Travis and he will walk you through that process of becoming a facilitator. It is extremely empowering to watch people in recovery learn how to navigate this field. Especially, I've trained several of my clients that I've been their coach or I've been their counselor. So I've watched them walk through all the stages of change in their recovery, and then they become coaches, and now they're peers in the field, and we're just a bunch of coaches together. So it's a pretty rewarding thing. And CCAR does have a monthly facilitator, like a coach for the coaching the coaches, and it gives everybody a chance to learn from each other about how to be a better coach. So kind of promoting that. And then I am also the president of MADAC. Now, every single one of you are eligible to be a national peer support specialist, which includes coaches and peer supports through NADAC, the National Association for Addiction Professionals. And NADAC has state affiliates. So in Michigan, we have the Michigan Association, and so all of you in the states, you look at your NADAC, NAADAC.org, and you'll be able to find the state affiliate for you and be a part of the advocacy, the legislature, the education, and all the things with MADAC. So after doing CCAR for 6 years and developing several of my own trainings that I do at state conferences and whatnot, and CCAR webinars, I developed my own business. It's Phoenix Professional Development Training LLC, and basically what I do is I offer, like I said, my trainings that I've developed and the entire CCAR curriculum, and it is kind of cool to have my own business and people know my training now as Phoenix, and the word of mouth and being able to promote it through different Facebook groups and things like that. And if anybody wants to follow me on Facebook, I don't have a website yet, so I'm using Facebook at Phoenix Professional Development Training. You'll be able to kind of follow the trainings that I offer and, just what's going on. And everything I'm doing right now is virtual, so everybody here can attend, not to steal away from Travis and CCAR. So I talked to you guys about MADAC, the Michigan Association for Addiction Professionals, and like I said, we're the state affiliate for NADAC. I am currently the president after being the secretary for quite a few years, and learning the business and learning boards. I encourage you guys to get on boards. Get on some of the boards in the different organizations in your area. The networking, the advocacy, learning about legislature in your state. It's just so amazing to do. So you guys can check out our website and see what MADAC is doing, and then check NADAC.org, like I said, and find which your state affiliate. All right, so the purpose of this training is to help addiction professionals, clinicians, and coaches to apply the principles of motivational interviewing in practical ways to support clients as they progress through the stages of change. Stages of change is also called the theoretical model, transtheoretical model. And the transtheoretical model just talks about the progress, the stages of change. So it emphasizes meeting clients where they are in their recovery journey. It provides strategies for guiding clients step by step through the continuum of care. It focuses on using MI techniques to move clients toward the next stage of change, and it aims to build internal confidence in clients, right? Self-efficacy, and help them successfully reach and maintain their goals. Who wants to work with a client for, a year, 2 years and watch them progress and then hear about their, them crashing and burning and hopefully they come back. But being able to help them maintain that recovery is one of the best skills of a recovery coach, because clinicians can only get them so far, but coaches, we're the ones that's going to help them maintain that recovery and teach them how to keep it. Trust me. We're you guys are going to be able to recognize the criteria for a substance use disorder, and that's something that clinicians do. That's an assessment they do, but we can learn about the DSM-5 and recognize the criteria for a substance use disorder. We're going to learn how to apply the Transtheoretical Model, utilize motivational interviewing, and we're going to do something called the flashlight. We're going to use the flashlight of MI. Elicit and reinforce change talk and support clients in maintaining stability. I'm going to teach you guys how to apply motivational interviewing in practical ways. So if you've been to a lot of motivational interviewing, trainings, this one's a little different because you're going to walk away with an ability to actually use it. Like, you're going to know when and how to use it. So, what is recovery, right? So, everybody, I think that's something that between clinicians and the community, whether it's the recovery community or your community in your city, we all talk about recovery in different ways. And so, SAMHSA, they define recovery as a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. And that's something that we hear. That's a pretty typical thing, definition that we hear quite often. And ASAM which is ASAM is basically an assessment to find out which level of care best suits you. And so they go through about 6 dimensions to find out which level of care is best for you. And when I say level of care, I mean detox, residential, intensive outpatient, outpatient, that sort of thing. So they say it's a process of sustained action that addresses the biological, psychological, social, and spiritual disturbances inherent in addiction. I mean, it makes sense. That's a pretty good one. And I will note that it says biological, psychosocial, psychological, and social. So they do something called a biopsychosocial assessment, and that's one of the things they do. Now, I want you guys to also notice
Hey,
that
Nicole.
those are different dimensions. And if you
Oh,
haven't ever looked into it, SAMHSA, SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. Yes.
sorry to interrupt you. Our slides aren't moving. The chat's blowing up. Hey, can we move the slides?
How's that look?
Yeah, we see what is recovery right now, SAMHSA, ASAM, and
Okay.
CPAR. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Just want to do my
No,
due
that's
diligence
quite
here.
all
Yeah.
right. I was just going to tell you guys, if you go to SAMHSA's website, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, you will find the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is part of our CCAR training. When we start talking about like the dimensions of wellness are sitting there in that self-care assessment. Those go over your 8 dimensions. Okay. So this is where it gets clinical for just a minute. There are 11 symptoms that help define a substance use disorder. And you and I can look at somebody and say, oh, they have all those behaviors, right? Or they're in withdrawal, or they have their tolerance is raised. They must have a substance use disorder. But clinicians need to be able to make a clear assessment based on criteria to be able to clinically diagnose. So they are able to say whether it's mild, moderate, or severe based on how many symptoms a person has. Now, between you and I, we already know that if a person has 2 to 3, they probably have all. But in the level of harm reduction, we have been able to see people reduce the number of symptoms and go into more of a moderate or mild substance use disorder. So in the slide after this, we're going to go over those 11. And I want you to think about how many are behavioral and how many are medical or chemical substance related, right? Medical or chemical substance. And how many of them are behavioral? All right? Because how can we as addiction professionals influence or intervene on these criteria? Because it would not be staying in our lane if we started doing some medical stuff, helping someone medically detox or different things like that. That's not in our lane, so we can't really do much about those things. But we can influence a lot of these dimensions. So I want you to look at what's behavioral versus medical or chemical. So this is what clinicians use to diagnose a substance use disorder. Number one, the substance is taken in larger amounts or over a longer period than was intended. Two, there are persistent desire or successful effort to cut down or control substance use, right? And so we're not going to do that part, but I want you to understand that these are the symptoms so that we can take a look at the goal is to reduce these. Lacey, did you have your hand up?
As recovery coaches, like it's not really our job to diagnose them, correct? Like legally, from a
Correct.
legal standpoint, the only thing we can do is put like substance use disorder unspecified on forms, and that's it. And then a clinician has to like go and do the rest, or
So the clinicians are going to go over these symptoms and they're going to diagnose somebody with a substance use disorder, whether it's mild, moderate, or severe, depending on how many of these symptoms they have. And the reason I'm showing you is because as recovery coaches, we can make a difference in this. We can help them reduce these. That's our goal, is to reduce these symptoms until they have a substance use disorder that's in remission.
Which
right?
takes 1 year in order to be considered substance use disorder in remission, correct?
Correct. So after a year of not having these symptoms, so what I'm showing to you is this is what clinicians are looking at, but we are the ones that are going to help reduce these just as much as the clinicians, if not more. Because we are looking at these going, yep, got it. Yep, that was me. Yep, that was me. Cravings, reoccurrent use as a result of failure to, resulting in a failure to fulfill major role obligations at work, home, and school. Yep, that was me. Like we understand what these are. Reoccurrent use in situations in which is physically hazardous. Yep, that was me. So when we can understand that these are the things that we are looking at trying to reduce, we get to have a little bit of a language with the clinicians because we understand what they're looking at for criteria. And it's kind of like, this is my mission. I'm going to start knocking these things out with that client. I'm going to start helping them with their cravings, right? I'm going to start, I'm going to start really showing them how to live as productive citizens and not having substances get in the way of your work, your school, and your family. Like this is our goal. This is our mission. So this is the reason I put it in here for us. Now, when we move into the Transtheoretical Model, which we know as the stages of change, James Prochaska and Carlo Di Clemente, they created this model, right? This Transtheoretical Model. And it goes from, you'll see on the screen that the red says pre-contemplation and the blue says, no, not doing any changes. Contemplation, maybe I'll do some changes. Preparation, all right, let's prepare and make a plan. And then action, I'm actually doing the changes, and maintenance. Here I am. I'm going to keep going. And a lot of people also discuss the idea that relapse is a possible sixth stage, which we all know is very possible and extremely common in the Transtheoretical Model. But that doesn't mean that a person has to go straight back to pre-contemplation, because most people, once they admit that they have a problem and they start to work on it, if they are to relapse, most people are not going to go back to saying, nope, I have no problem. They know they have a problem, but maybe they're back into contemplation. Sometimes you guys have seen it. Sometimes people jump back in right into preparation, like, let me get back on my feet. I'm going to start doing all the things. Yes, Lacey.
I think that you can like move through all of these phases at all points in recovery. Like, to be 100% honest with you, there have been times like after I've had like a few years clean where I've sat and thought, well, like maybe I don't have a problem. Like maybe my problem was like not having stable income and committing crime, you know? And so I went through a point in time in like my early recovery in 2020 where like I was working and using meth and just like not using it socially, not telling anyone, and like using
Yep.
it as a medication in like various amounts. And that was after like having like a couple of years clean. And then, you know, and then that kind of put me in the mind state to be able to get clean all the way eventually after a small jail sentence. But I think it's possible to move through all of these like periodically. And I think addiction,
Yeah.
like you know how they say cunning, baffling, and powerful, like
Sure.
your head will try and lie to you about that shit like constantly. So I think that you
Yes.
through all the phases or get what is the word, like complacent. and
Yep.
and then when you're like complacent, you're not really like in the action or maintenance phase. You think you're all good, and then you have to like re-go through everything again.
Or maybe we just stop doing the doing and we're like, yeah, I'll get around to that, right? Yeah, I'll get around to it. Especially if you stop going to meetings or you stop doing the things, the regular routine things we're doing, and we just start kind of going, yeah, I'll get around to it. Then we might be back in the preparation stage. So CCAR even says that these stages of change are not linear, right? That's what you just described, Lacey, is that these are not linear. I don't go through them and bam, that's it. I'm going to go back and forth. Okay. And for the rest of this slide, it's easy for us to look at our recoveries, our substance use disorders, and see these changes, these stages of change. What I want to challenge you to do, and you did this during recovery coach training, is I want you to find a change that you want to make or in the process of making in your life right now. So whether it's I want to change my relationships, I want to change my health, I want to, I want to get back. Maybe I'm getting complacent and need to start getting back to meetings or whatever. But I want you to think about a change that you want to make in your life or are in the process of making. Okay. Because we're going to go through these slides, but I want to teach you how to use these in everyday life. And if you know anybody else that is talking to you, friends, family, significant others, they're talking about, I want to make this change. Why don't we really take a look at that as the way to go through this? Because when you start applying this to everyday life, using it with your clients is second nature. It's just a conversation. It's just something you do. So we're going to practice really getting into this as something we do in our everyday life. So pre-contemplation, we're not ready. I'm just not ready. And the client stance is, I don't have a problem. It's not that bad. And a lot of times we see this in our justice involved clients, where, they're on probation and they were only using so much and it was just recreational and I don't have a problem, right? I remember saying to everybody, I don't have a problem. I can stop anytime I want to. I just don't want to. And when my clients say that to me now, I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. So our MI approach with these guys is to focus on awareness and building rapport. We are not dragging them through a whole recovery wellness plan. We are not, pushing meetings on them. All we're doing is building rapport with these guys, and then we're going to focus on raising awareness, helping them see, maybe by using motivational interviewing, we're going to help them see what is really not something that they want in their life right now. So, how to use MI: express empathy, listen without judgment. And these are where expressing empathy is like saying, that sounds really difficult. That sounds really stressful. I can understand why you're frustrated, things like that. Ask permission before sharing information. Do you guys do this? Or do you rapid fire? Rapid fire resources, rapid fire solutions. And we tend to do this because we're excited because we know so much that can help them. And we've got all these ideas for them that they can try. And if we ask them, would you like some ideas? Would you like some solutions? And they say no, that's when we slow our roll, because we can share those resources in the next appointment or the third appointment because they might be more ready for it. We're going to explore values and life goals so that we can actually develop discrepancy more in the future. We cannot show them, you're doing this, but you say you want this, if we don't know what they want. If we don't really understand what they value in their life goals are, it's hard to do the developing discrepancy. So an example is, you've mentioned that your health matters to you. Can you tell me how your current habits fit with this? And then they're going to go, and they're going to do the stutter game. Contemplation, ambivalence. I'm sitting on a fence. I don't know if I want to go on this side or that side. So I know something needs to change, but I'm just not ready to do it yet. They don't have the recovery capital to help make this change. So I know something needs to change. Help them explore ambivalence. So why would you choose this way? Why would you choose that way? So use decisional balance, pros and cons of changing versus not changing. I will tell you a better thing than pros and cons, and you guys feel free to write this down: smartrecovery.org. If you go to their website, they have something called a cost benefit analysis. All of the worksheets on Smart Recovery are free, and they're super great to use for our clients. And if you go there and you find a CBA, cost benefit analysis, what it is it's the advantages and disadvantages of doing something, and then the advantages and disadvantages of not doing something. And it's a really cool way, which is much better than just a pro and con, because it validates that there are pros there are advantages to using drugs and alcohol, and there are disadvantages to using drugs and alcohol, but there's also disadvantages to not using. And if we don't validate those things for them and act like there wasn't a benefit, it's hard for them to really be like, you don't understand. So feel free to steal that. I use it quite often. It's way better than a pro and con. So we're going to try to talk about this ambivalence without pushing them one way or
Can you
another.
put that in the chat, please?
Travis, will you put?
Oh, I see it. I see it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, it's hard for me to see the chat. So yeah, it's smartrecovery.org, and I steal all their worksheets, but the cost benefit analysis will work for just about anything. I had a girl try to figure out, she hated her job, she hated the people she was around, she wanted to leave and do something else, but she was just she just wasn't great at job searching, and she was too afraid she was gonna lose the benefits that she had and not find it somewhere else. So we did one for the cost benefit analysis for her. So we went through all the stages of change with her as far as trying to get her ready to she wasn't ready to leave that job, even though she knew there were probably better options out there. And so we absolutely did this, and we did a cost benefit analysis, and in the long run, she was able to find ways to talk to her leadership and find a better solutions to her situations, and she ended up staying at her job. But she really was ready to bail because she just didn't know how to talk to her leadership about improving her situation. So I wasn't trying to push her one way or another because I have absolutely no idea. I'm not trying to act like I know what she should do. Preparation. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready. Where do I start? Where do I start? Well, first you need to A, B, and C, right? Let's take the next steps. So I want to change, but I don't know how. And we're going to start building a plan. And there's something called a recovery wellness plan, right? And that's where you take, okay, I want to change. Well, okay, what do you want to change? There's our goals. And then we start the building a plan, which is next steps. We work on next steps. We don't work out of, see, smart goals are not smart goals. They're actually smart objectives. Smart objectives, not really smart goals. So objectives are what the next step is going to be, and it's going to be specific, it's going to be measurable, right? It's going to be attainable or achievable. It's going to be relevant, and it's going to be timely. So when you look at your objectives, those are really what needs to be smart. And we're focusing on those. Our conversations are going to be open-ended at this point. So instead of saying, how was your weekend? You're going to say, what kind of things did you do with the family this weekend? Or what did you do for your recovery this weekend? And we're going to be a little bit more specific, as opposed to just or how was your weekend? Fine, good. It sucked. It's hard to go anywhere with that. Action. All right, these guys are doing it now. We're doing it. So, this is where we go from buying the tennis shoes and the workout clothes and getting it all ready to actually getting to the gym and doing it, or getting on the street and doing your walks and your runs. So doing it, we're in action. Actively making the changes. So our approach here is to support, encourage, and reinforce progress. We are not throwing more at them. We're just like, keep going, do what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Look how far you've come. I hope you're proud of yourself. And then we're going to celebrate successes, affirm their strengths. You've been alcohol free for a week, even with all that stress at work. That shows real commitment. And, or they say, oh, I only made it to the end of the street and back. And it's like, yeah, but you weren't even leaving the house. So that's awesome. So whatever change they're trying to make, we are just celebrating it in this action phase. Okay. So it lets you know that if you can identify, you guys always hear the saying, meet people where they're at. This is what we're doing. Meeting them where they're at means at their stage of change. And then when you go, oh, they're in the action stage. Okay, what do I do? That's where this kicks in. We are celebrating. We are affirming. Maintenance. This is where they're sustaining it. We look at this usually at about 12 months of action. They're sustaining their change, and we're focusing on relapse prevention. But I have a saying with my clients, whether they're counseling or coaching, and I say, my job is to teach you how to live without me. That's my whole job. I want you to learn how to do all the things that we do, identify triggers and what coping skills and be able to find a meeting by yourself without calling me and doing all these things. My job is to teach you how to live without me. And so that is what building self-efficacy is that your clients are able to do stuff that you were doing for them, or they found somebody in the community that they can rely on for that support, because treatment ends. It is not a lifelong, it's not a lifelong pathway, right? Anything externally motivated or that isn't permanent is not a recovery pathway. So treatment is not a recovery pathway. You cannot stay forever. I will kick you out of the nest. And my job is to make sure that I've taught you everything I can about you flying before I do. Have you guys ever had a clinician discharge a client that you were like, this person's not ready? I can't see a lot of hands, but or faces, but that happens. That has happened to me where I'm like, how do you think this person is ready for discharge when they have like zero recovery capital? Well, they've been sober 12 months with no recovery capital, right? The only recovery capital I have is us. That's not a good idea. So then if we look at relapse as a stage of change, which it happens, it means that they're returning to their old behavior. And whatever change this is, they're back to their old thinking and old behaviors, which could be substance use. But our job is to normalize relapse as a part of change and help reduce their shame. We're going to explore what happened without judgment. Why? Because we've been there. And reaffirm their ability to try again. This is kind of important. If we focus on the relapse and all the mistakes and what they did wrong, at some point we got to redirect them off that and start talking about giving them different examples of ways that they have the ability to try again. Focus on that ability. Use reflections to reduce guilt and rebuild hope. So you had a setback, but you also noticed it right away and came back here to talk about it. That shows determination. It's way harder to reach out for help and get back on track than it is to just stay out there in the madness. All right. So, motivational interviewing in a minute. So this guy's name is Casey Jackson, and he describes the stages of change in this video and it's very visual. So do I have any visual learners? Like, you need to be able to picture things in your mind to really get them and learn them. So here, this one's for you.
Change is not
Good.
motivational interviewing.
Good.
Stages of change is from Prochaska and DiClemente, and it was a process that we could assess, a pretty common sense way of being able to see what stage of change is someone at in their change process. So for me, being a visual learner, I always use my hand. Pre-contemplation, behind the head, I can't see it, I'm not aware of it, or I don't want to see it and I don't want to be aware of it. Contemplation shifts out over here so I can actually see what the issue is, I can see what the problem is, I can start to see it. But with contemplation, I've got reasons why I want to change and reasons why I don't want to change. So this is contemplation, debating it. If I get tired of it, I'll go back to pre-contemplation. Or I'll go out into preparation. Like, I'll need to buy new running shoes, I need to eat healthier, I need to buy more organic food. These are all preparatory things. Doesn't mean I'm changing a behavior just because I'm spending a lot of money. You might know about this. Then we shift from preparation into the action stage. I'm doing it. I'm on a treadmill at 5 in the morning even though I don't like it. That's the action stage. Maintenance over here, I don't even think about it. I do it every day naturally. So these are your stages of change: pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance. These are the stages of change. That's your MI Minute.
All right. What do you guys think about that? thoughts, questions, comments. And I'm going to have my video up. I'm waiting on back surgery. And so I'm going to be standing and sitting and whatnot. So I might have my video off, but what did you guys think of that visual analogy, or is there anything what did you think about that? Here's some thoughts, questions, and comments from you guys. Was it helpful or not your style or what?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Where can I get more?
Hey, Casey Jackson, he does these MI minutes. So Casey, Casey Jackson on YouTube.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, see if that helps. Yeah. Very cool. All right. So next.
Change
No,
is
we're not going to do that again.
motivational interviewing.
Okay, next. So we're meeting people where they're at. That's the whole goal. That's what Stages of Change is all about, is meeting people where they're at. Now we're going to get into motivational interviewing. So the most current version of MI is described in detail in Miller and Rolnick's 2013 version, Motivational Interviewing, Helping People to Change, third edition. It is a very clinical read, but it's really, really good at going through and getting really, really detailed about MI. I remember as a recovery coach, when my clinical director gave it to me, I was like, oh my God, this is more than I know how to learn. Even though you guys aren't in Michigan, I will tell you that MI Improving Practices .org is a website that you can take free motivational interviewing trainings for. It's just one CE, but it's more or less just taking, if you go in order, it'll take you, it'll go through different things in order with the motivational interviewing. So it's called it's called improvingmipractices.org. So MI is a guiding style of communication. So it's a guiding style. And it sits between following, which is good listening, and directing, which is giving information and advice, which we're going to ask them if they want, right? And MI is designed to empower people to change by drawing out their own meaning, importance, and capacity for change. MI is based on respectful and curious way of being with people that facilitates the natural process of change and honors client autonomy. Do you guys know that all that we are doing with our clients is just having a conversation? And for you newer coaches, when you get nervous, not knowing, how to deal with the client, just have a conversation. Like you sat down next to somebody and you guys are just, trying to ask normal questions to get to know each other. And it just takes away the clinical side of it. So those are, so now we're doing the core principles of MI. Core principles: expressing empathy, developing discrepancy, rolling with resistance, and supporting self-efficacy. Core principles. Expressing empathy is just using reflective listening to show how you understand your client's perspective without judgment. Developing discrepancy helps clients see the gap between their current behavior and the goals and values that you guys have discussed in session. Right? Rolling with resistance. Instead of pushing back, acknowledge the resistance and explore it. And we're going to talk about how to do that well, because we get a lot of resistance in our job, don't we? Lots of people are defiant and defensive, and they say things like, that's not going to work for me. I've already tried that, blah, blah, blah. So they just shoot down all your ideas. And then supporting self-efficacy, building confidence in the client's ability to change and teaching them these processes. I did this presentation the other day and somebody asked me, do you share the stages of change with your client? And I say, absolutely. how easy would it be to say to teach them about the basics of the stages of change and say, where do you think you're at? Well, I'm not really doing it yet, so I guess I'm in preparation. And then you guys are working together towards that action. You guys, are doing it together, because that's the greatest thing about recovery coaching is we're doing it with them. They don't have to do this stuff by themselves. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it with them. So you got the principles in the last slide. These are the skills. Oars. Guys, have you seen oars before? Travis is like, oh yeah. So open-ended questions. This offers more freedom of discussion, making the conversation more effective. If you really start getting good at this and coming up with some really, really good open-ended questions, you will get people talking. What was the best thing about your weekend? Nothing. It sucked. Okay. What was the worst thing about your weekend? Oh, it was the fact that, this, that, the other happened. And boy, they'll talk about the worst thing that happened quicker than they will the best thing that happened. Affirmations, positive statements designed to encourage the patient. So we are just constantly pointing things out. Do you realize what you just said? You said that. Oh my gosh, do you understand how awesome that was? And and just constantly using your ability to keen in on some of those moments that you can celebrate. When you hear it, celebrate it. Reflective listening helps confirm the understanding of both parties. So the easiest statement is what I heard you say was, or correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that this is what you're saying. And then sometimes they'll say, yes, yep, that's what I said. And sometimes they'll go, no, that's not what I meant. Because when you say it back to them, sometimes they hear it and go, actually, no, that's not what I meant. But when you use that reflective listening, it helps them understand that you are listening. And then summarizing is a way of revisiting points covered. So this is where I do two things. One, I point out the next action steps. And action steps are not just for your client, they're for you. So between now and the next session, we talked about you doing A, B, and C, and that I was going to do A, B, and C to help you, to get you those resources, or I was going to look into that or coordinate with somebody. So this is what you said you were going to do. This is what I said I was going to do, right? And then you might throw in a couple highlights of, and also we discussed how great it was that you did A, B, and C. So you want to leave your clients in that like hopeful, motivated stage when you leave them. Thoughts, questions, comments? Has anybody had any success with these whether we're using the core principles or we're using the skills? Can you think of something that you were like, I use this and it worked so good? There was a moment, there was a person. What you got, Chad? I can just see it in your face.
Well, I wrote in the chat like misery loves company, but where you're at is not where you're going. So you got to put just think positively. People speak defeat all day long, but if you read the Bible like I do, in Joel chapter 3, it says, let the weak say I'm strong. So it don't say let the weak talk about the weakness or call up 5 friends, because misery loves company. Everybody can say my back hurts, my foot hurts. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this class.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, misery does love company. And I'll tell you, if you're in a crappy mood or you had a shitty weekend, I will tell you, they will suck you right down into their little hole. And you've got to be careful not to take the bait. When they start talking about how bad the weather was and, that they didn't get to do A, B, and C, and then you sit there and talk about how crappy your weekend was, it's like you need to be careful not to do the misery loves company right along with them. Rebecca says, if you affirm to peers, they will often keep talking, as many of them have not heard anything positive in some time. Yeah, you start giving them affirmations, and all everybody ever does is tell them what they should have done instead. And you're the first person that sat there and told them how great they were and how awesome it was that they did that. And the thing with another magical thing with coaches is that we can see how how awesome the simple things that people do are. Where other people are like, I remember when I got a year sober, you guys, nobody in my family has addiction issues. Believe it, trust and believe they got issues, but they just don't have addiction issues. And so my brother at a year sober, my dad was so proud of me. I almost died from heroin addiction. And my dad was so proud of me to get a year sober. And my brother said, well, I'm glad you're finally doing what you should have been doing all along. So luckily I had those support systems and a recovery pathway where every little thing that I did, that I got over, every little hump, every little speed bump, people would say, look at you, good job, you got through that. And it was just something simple, but it was a big deal for me. I mean, it could have been a relapse potential, some of those speed bumps, and I got through them, and people were constantly telling me how great it was. Because if all I had was people like my brother telling me, good, you're finally doing what you should have been doing all along, I would have just been super bummed about the fact that I felt like I kicked ass. All right. So, how is MI useful? So, while the principles and the skills of MI are useful in a wide range of conversations, MI is particularly useful to help people examine their own situation and options when any of the following are present. So, you guys know these clients, the ambivalence is high. People are stuck in mixed feelings about change, how they want to change and then they don't want to change, or they're justifying and rationalizing why they don't need to change. Confidence. Their confidence is low, and people doubt their ability to change. And that's where we come in. That's that celebration. Desire is low, and people are uncertain about whether they want to make a change. I mean, change can be very difficult. So if they're just not wanting to make the change because they're thinking it's going to be more difficult than the situation they're in, we need to help them see that their situation's not that great. Lacey.
I think the confidence is like a really big one, or at least it has been for me, like through my experience and also with a lot of my clients. It's like, what's holding you back from that 80, 90, $100,000 a year job? Like you are, like that's the only thing. I
Yep.
think that a lot of times, um, as addicts, we spend a lot of time in our addiction with people telling us that we're not shit, that we're never going to be shit, that we can't do things, in that shame cycle and like doubting ourselves. But like confidence is so huge. So I think like working with clients to help them realize their full potential and help them to break like their false beliefs that they hold in their life,
Yep.
and challenge those beliefs and really like dig deep to the core on like, well, when did you start believing this? Like, was it rooted in your childhood? And like, how has that served you through your life? And allowing them to walk through like what the consequences have been of those actions, and kind of guide them to like a fresh new perspective and a different belief that's based on facts and like what they've achieved and the things that they're doing now. And just really encourage them to shoot big and go with the, like, you fail 100% of the time that you don't try. So like,
Yeah.
what is that goal? Like, if you could wave a magic wand right now and like your dreams would come true, what would that look like? Okay, why
Ooh.
can't you get there? And let's figure out how to work that goal backwards and get you there.
Very nice. And you know what? One of the things I talked about, you started talking about limiting beliefs. I was sitting there thinking that would be something that would ding ding in my head, that I'm going to talk to the therapist and I'm going to say, hey, I've noticed all these limiting beliefs in this client. And, we kind of started talking about it, and let that clinician really go into the processing and identifying of core beliefs and limiting beliefs. And then you get to help them in their positive reinforcement of these new beliefs, and like you said, helping build that confidence. We're good at that.
How are
Hey,
you?
Matthew.
You mentioned working with the clinician
Mhm.
on that. So, like, how do you suppose you bridge the gap between what the client's working on with their clinician and you?
Well, Also comes from clinical supervision. Like if you work with the clinical supervisor and say, "Hey, I'd really like to coordinate with this primary therapist on this client," and most of the time the clinical supervision is like, "Yes, yes, yes, coordinate," and you might even go to that primary clinician. I usually start with their boss to make sure it's okay that I do it. Most agencies are totally on board with you coordinating care. But telling that therapist, hey, I had a really good session with the client, and this is some of the things that came out of it. And I just wanted to share. And, whatever you guys come up with for the plan, I really want to help support that. And the more coordinating, and collaboration you have with the therapist, that client, you guys are going to have this like team approach to this client. And this client's going to be so excited to have both of such a team. It's not just having one or two people. It's like, wow, these guys are working together and really, really care about me.
Can
Does
I
that make
play
sense?
devil's advocate a little bit with that? I mean, yeah, that
Yeah.
does make sense to me, but I also feel like sometimes I don't know. I feel like that might be a little bit pushy. I think that sometimes like clients need like a safe space like with their clinician to share, and then their coach is kind of separate from that. In my honest opinion, I don't think that like that collaboration would be good. I was just wondering like what your perspective was on it. Personally, I think like working with a client on like what their limiting beliefs are is not out of my lane. I think that it's perfectly within like my scope of practice of what I'm doing, and being able to like work on those things and help them change those beliefs on their own. But I think you mentioned earlier asking permission. Maybe you ask permission, is this something that you would want, or do you want to keep this separate? And I think that like caution has to really be used with that, because a lot of people in recovery that I've watched are bad at self-advocating, and they're bad at like saying no, or like speaking when they're uncomfortable, and sometimes like people want like a place that's HIPAA protected to go and to like talk about, just dump all their shit without having to worry about it getting back to someone else. Because I know a lot of coaches are linked to like sober living organizations that are linked to housing and things like that. So I think that it's kind of like I don't know, like a
Well,
blurry
I
line.
I I think you're onto something, but I also think there needs to be, before you just go to start collaborating with a clinician, I would ask them, how do you feel about collaborating? In my experience, clinicians have always honored the fact that I don't want the client to know I told you this stuff. And clinicians have a way of doing the motivational interviewing to bring those topics and those thoughts out without acting like they were told stuff. And yes, Lacey, I think there's going to be times when, a client's going to tell us something that we want to keep private. But if you have a healthy dynamic in your organization, which maybe there's not, but if you have a healthy dynamic, you should be able to go to the clinician and tell them what's going on without them throwing you under a bus and being like, oh well, Lacey told me blah blah blah. That should not be happening, and that's not a healthy work environment. So if you don't have that relationship, then yes, I understand that. But in my experiences, and I that definitely doesn't speak for everything, I can go to a clinician and say, this came up in session, and I really think this is something that, you guys can explore more. It doesn't mean I can't work with them too, but if their therapist is they're working on it, and they respect, the confidence, and or they expect, excuse me, they respect the confidentiality. They shouldn't be throwing you under a bus and just blabbing it. There's a way to pull that out of them by asking good questions, that I can act like I don't necessarily know that that feedback was passed. So it definitely, it would be like a conversation I would have with the clinical supervisor first, and then the clinician, that how do you feel about collaborating with clients in general? Does that help?
Yeah, that's helpful. And I think, like I feel like you're talking about more like regular like coordination of care versus like collaboration also. And I think that like coordination of care, yes, is very.
Very good, thank you. Matthew, you had your hand up. I apologize.
Yeah, no, quite all right. I think we need to be very careful with our boundaries and recognizing that we are never a therapist. So every time it starts to go that way, we have to bring it back to recovery. So you
Yeah.
can have a really great working relationship with their clinician only if you do recognize that we're not therapists.
Right.
And in those first, like that first meeting, it's so important to just listen, because they're going to want to talk. In my experience, they just kind of like open everything up and talk about where they're at and why they want recovery.
Right.
And so you really have to listen to them. There's a lot of nuance and how you can nudge them into, instead of me telling them like
Telling
that's
us what
powerful,
they
or
want.
you've got
Yeah.
to you lead them to the watering hole and get them to say those powerful things about themselves. And I find that that really kicks off a really good day for them, and they start to really recognize that in themselves instead of me constantly trying to motivate them and pump them up. We're trying to get them to learn how to motivate themselves and see the good inside of them. So
Yeah. And we just gotta, and we're gonna talk about the flashlight, which is how to highlight those things in them so that they see them themselves. But I do like the idea that you're saying, like, we have to be careful with when we do. One thing that will ruin the collaboration between you and a therapist is you stepping out of your boundaries. And if you start doing therapy on your clients, they are definitely not going to respect, what your job is and what your role is. Don't start doing their job. The last one we didn't talk about was the importance is low. So they just don't think that recovery is important. They're more focused on housing and their relationship, and they're just not even focusing on like how important recovery is and itself. So that's how MI is useful. So ways to apply it. So the client is ambivalent, on the fence, or just having a hard time making a decision. To show a client that you are actively listening and remember the things that are important to them, from like even from beginning to the end of the session or session to session. To highlight a client's strengths and direct the conversation to a positive way of thinking. The client is resistant to a change they have previously expressed wanting to make. To rephrase what the client has said so that they can hear their own words out loud, and to allow the client to decide on changes themselves rather than suggested by the professionals. This is the key. We want them to decide on the changes. We want them to start using that change talk. It is way more powerful than any magical thing we think we can say, is when we start hearing them talk about the change themselves. All right, this is something called Darn Cat. And I have a few documents that I can send to Travis if you want to send those out, Travis. So the top is desire, ability, reason, and need. So we start with the desire. I want to change. The ability, I can change. R is the reason. It's important to change and why. And then N is need. I should change. This is something I want and something I need in my life. And then the cat is I will make changes. Commitment. Activation is I am ready, prepared, and willing to change. They've got some preparation involved. And T is taking the steps. So we listen for the darn cat as signals of where the client is in the change process, like what stage they're in. And the goal is to evoke more of this language, gently guiding clients from thinking about it, ready to act, and doing it. So the more a person hears themselves express their own reasons for change, the more likely they are to follow through. Does that make sense? So I'm going to send this document. It says darn cat, and it'll help you kind of remember like where is your client at and what's next and how can I work with them on that. All right, so like Matthew was kind of talking about, our job is not necessarily to tell them what to focus on, but shine a light towards an area that they might not see themselves. So MI is the flashlight that helps clients see the path forward at every stage. Sometimes you're shining it on their values, sometimes sometimes on their ambivalence, and sometimes on their strengths. All right, so I want you guys to picture this flashlight that we've got. So think of motivational interviewing as a flashlight in a dark forest. Okay, you guys are both walking through this dark forest. You've already been through it, by the way. You know the path, you know the obstacles, and the client is on their own path. And it might not be the same path as yours to get through the forest. So you're not dragging them forward, you're simply shining a light so they can see the way more clearly. So in pre-contemplation, we're shining a light on their values. Clients may not see any problem. Here, the flashlight helps illuminate what matters most to them, their values, goals, and life vision. And like Lacey was saying, these clients may go through these stages of change in different orders. We may have to shine it back on their values if they get lost in the process and become complacent, or they start to go backwards into the thinking and behaviors. We might need to go back to shining it on their values and goals. In contemplation, we're shining it on ambivalence. The path forks. Ambivalence. You can go right or left. One way is staying the same, and the other is change. The flashlight doesn't push them down either trail. It simply helps them look at both, noticing the pros and cons. So again, this is where we're probably doing like cost benefit analysis, but there's something called it's called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the neuroscience of making a decision, of changing, and your brain physically, not just emotionally, but physically changes pathways if you start to focus on something different than what you've always done. So when we show them the paths, and yes, the one on the left is so much easier because I've been going down it and I'm familiar and I know it. And it's not really easier and it doesn't get me where I want to go, but it's familiar to me. And when we start going down the right path, yes, it's more difficult because it's unknown and I don't know what's coming up. But that's where we come in. We're going to walk with them down that trail. We got the flashlight. We're like, oh, look, there's that log we got to go over. Ooh, watch out for that boulder or that, whatever. We're shining it on that trail to help them. In preparation, shining on the next steps. Clients begin to lean toward change, but may feel unsure. So the flashlight focuses on the stones right in front of them, small concrete steps that they can take. So we're looking straight at their feet instead of all the way down the end of the trail. It's easy for us to go, look, all the way down there is what we want. Sometimes we just need to make sure those next couple steps are clear of barriers and stuff that we see that they may not. Thoughts, questions, comments on this so far? Do we like this? Do we like having a flashlight? Okay, so next we have action. Action stage is shining it on their strengths. The path gets rocky. Here, the flashlight highlights their progress and skills so they don't stumble. It reveals the strengths that they already carry with them. Do you guys ever use the technique where sometimes when they just feel so overwhelmed by all the things that they still need to do that we stop for a second and take a look and reflect on what they've already done? And so every once in a while, you've got to turn around and say, look how far you've come. Did you think you were going to get over that? And you did. Like that was huge. And then we can take a look at that and start to build their confidence and shine it on their strengths. And then when we shine it on the steps in front of us, you're like, well, shit, that doesn't even look half as bad as what I already did. Well, yes. And look what you accomplished. So, with the action, we're really looking at strengths. Maintenance, we're shining it on their supports. And I'm going to add recovery capital. The flashlight steadies their footing by showing them the guardrails, supports, routines, and strategies that keep them on the path. We've been working on these things. If they're in a maintenance stage, they're probably about a year sober. And we're looking at all those supports that we have built, helped them build. They have a sponsor, they have a mental health counselor, they're working with volunteering at the church, and they now have stable housing. They've repaired a relationship with their sister and she's helping them out. So like sometimes in maintenance, we have to, this is part of self-efficacy, is it's not about coming to me with all the questions. It's about you answering the questions yourself or taking a look at your support systems that you have right there. You just aren't grabbing them. You're not using them. And then relapse, we shine it on hope. We shine it on hope. We're not shining it on their mistakes. That's not what it says. If they wander off the trail and they trip and they fall and skin their knee, get tangled up in some, bushes, we're gonna help them get back onto the trail. And instead of judging them for going off the trail, which we told them not to, and we shined a flashlight showing them what that was, it casts a light on the resilience, showing that setbacks are part of the journey, not the end. People sometimes need to go off track to prove to themselves that there isn't a trail there because they just are not sure, and they start to lose confidence in us and trust and confidence in us and themselves. And sometimes they are going to go off the trail and get themselves all tangled up in some bushes. And we've done it. Somebody shines a light on a perfectly good solution, a perfectly good answer, steps, trail, and we just decide we're going to go into the freaking bushes. So let's be just really careful. He says the path that leads to nowhere. Absolutely. But I'm not convinced that it's going to lead to nowhere until I get into that trail and go, that path leads to nowhere. But I sometimes just don't have the faith, right? How hard is it to help clients build faith? That's a pretty hard job for us. It's pretty hard. We try. We really do. And being able to have them have faith in themselves, remember, we say have faith in the process, trust the process. They got to learn to have faith in us. And that faith can be very difficult. It can be very difficult to learn. So when somebody has a relapse, we're talking about, sometimes people just say a return to use. Sounds better than relapse. They had a return to use. We're going to just focus on that resilience and showing them that setbacks are part of the journey, not the end. Fair enough? All right. This is CCAR's favorite thing to do, so we're going to do it. It's called a role play. I'm going to, let's see here. We have 44 participants, so I'm going to pair you off into groups. And you are going to find a partner and decide one of you is going to be a slightly resistant client. You can be your own, the way you used to be, or way a client is slightly resistant. Be nice. And the other person is going to play an empathetic, nurturing recovery coach. So we're going to practice this. Now, picture it. Here's your situation. The client comes in after a third appointment stating, no one is supporting my recovery. My family is still drinking, and I've been sober for like 3 months, and my life is just boring and lonely. And I know that you have recommended pathways of recovery in the past, but that's not for me. That won't work for me. So in 2 to 3 minutes, in 2 to 3 minutes, you are going to do this role play. But what I want you to think of is, if you are the client, I want you to think about what kind of principles of MI is your coach using. So you're doing your thing, being your client, and you want to listen for the motivational interviewing, and for the clinician or the recovery coach, you guys are doing your thing, and you are trying to identify which stage of change your client is in. So, any questions? I'm gonna divide you all up, and you have a client and a coach, and you're gonna do your role play, third appointment, right? And you're gonna pay attention to what stage of change the client's in and what motivational interviewing techniques the coach is using. All right. I can't see everybody. Are they?
We needed more time, but yeah, it was going good.
We all needed more time, buddy.
I know you guys could have gone for 10 minutes. I swear I could have let you go. I just wasn't sure. And there were some groups of you with 3. So how about we keep the breakout rooms, and when we'll switch roles. We got time to switch roles and do it again. So let's just talk about the what you did get done. Hopefully you were able to do enough to identify what stage of change was the client in. I want to talk to a group. So give me a group that went together. Raise your hand, and I want the person that you guys were working with together. So who wants to be an example? Chad, who were you, the client or the coach?
Hey, Dana. Hey, Dana. This is Kobe.
Okay, Chad, were you the client or the coach?
I was the client, but the woman with the headphones on, I forget her name. I think it's Janelle or but she was the one, and I was just I was waiting for her to lift me out of the hole, because I was like the drug addict, and I was thinking about using. So anyway,
Oh boy.
yeah, there she is.
So
Yeah.
who was Chad's coach?
I was the coach, but we only got about 30 seconds
Yeah.
because we were both ended up in rooms all by ourselves, so it didn't get very far.
Okay, why don't we use somebody else then? No offense, you guys.
No, that's fine.
We'll put you back into the same groups, and we'll do it again. Who was able to get a couple sentences in? Someone raise your hand, or I'll just pick somebody. I have a saying: volunteer or be voluntold. You're welcome to use it. Volunteer or be voluntold. Carrie, were you the coach or the client?
I was the client.
Okay, who is your coach?
I don't remember his name. I'm really bad with names.
Who is Carrie's coach?
I was Carrie's coach,
There we
John.
go.
Okay.
John.
All right, so we got John the coach and Carrie the client. So, John, what stage of change was your client in?
She was, well, first of all, we also did not get very far. But I would say that what stage would it be if she's been sober for a week, but she's really frustrated and really wanting to get back out and use again? So I guess she's ambivalent, so that would mean that she's um, on the verge of returning to use.
Well, if she's only a week sober, and she's using ambivalence is contemplation, right? So because she's not quite in the preparation stage yet, because she's still planning her relapse, not her recovery, right? And so she's not quite in the preparation stage. So ambivalence is really all about contemplation. I'm on the fence. Do I want to use, or do I want to stay sober, right?
Right.
Does that sound about right for what you guys talked about?
Carrie?
Oh, sorry.
Carrie,
Yes, I did.
yeah. So would you say you as a client were in the ambivalent contemplation stage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, Carrie, what different styles of motivational interviewing principles or core skills did the recovery coach use?
I feel like a little bit of both. Like, my thing was, as I said, like, I don't know if I want to do anything other than use and sell drugs. I don't have any other skills. And he was like, he told me, it was really great that I was even contemplating on continuing my sobriety, and that, new skills can be learned and stuff like that.
So he was
Yeah.
helping you build your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded like he had some empathy and he was doing some celebrating, and celebrating is considered an affirmation, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
there was affirmation there. I was sort of celebrating the fact that she was even having a discussion with me, and she was being
Yeah.
so honest and candid. And I think we discussed how those were two critical ingredients for a
Yeah.
successful recovery path. So I
Yeah.
appreciated that honesty.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, some of my clients, when they come in and they're just, and I hate the term, but hot mess. The
Mm,
one thing I always celebrate, at least you made your session. At least you came to your session. At least you were willing to work on it, or at least you just didn't want to go to jail. But any of that, at least you made it to your session.
right.
So good job, you guys. Lacey, were you the coach or the client? Is that you,
All right,
Lacey?
yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I was a client. I told my coach, I'm like, listen, like I have a year clean. I can do this by myself. I don't need to go to these groups. Like I have connection with my husband and my children. And like I went to one and it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. I don't vibe with those people and it's just not for me. And she offered to like go to a meeting with me to help me feel more comfortable. And that was kind of when I told her, like, I just don't like this meeting in general. And then we talked a little bit about, she told me the opposite of addiction is connection, which I love that. I
Mhm.
typed that in the chat earlier. And I totally agree with that. And then I gave her a little bit of feedback of like, if I were the coach and my client were saying that, I would try to kind of pull from like, okay, but if you're frustrated with your husband, you can't really like lean on your husband about your frustration with your husband. And it's inappropriate to like talk to your children about that. So like having connection with other women in recovery is like really good.
Yeah.
And I had like almost 5 years clean and sober until I didn't. And the reason I didn't was because of not having that connection. So
Connection. Yeah.
um yeah, so I
So
was in the
what
maintenance phase.
principles or skills of MI did your coach use?
Um, I think like I think she could have been a little bit better about more open-ended questions, but she was like very, very supportive, offered to go with me. And I think she could have asked more like, what exactly did you not like about it? And just dug deeper with the open-ended questions. But we also like did not have like hardly any
Yeah.
time that was way
All
too
right.
short to accomplish
Well, I'll
anything.
give you guys, we'll do it again. I'll give you guys a little bit more time, like at least 5 minutes, because I normally I don't have this much time in a session or in a, we have 2 hours, whereas most of the time I have to do this in an hour and a half. So it sounds like she was doing affirmations, expressing empathy. Would you agree with that? Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Is it Francie? Were you the coach?
Oh, so I was the coach at first, and then we had a third. So I was with Taryn, and she was the client, and I was the coach for like 30 seconds or a minute. And then Daniel came in, and I became the client, and he became the coach.
Okay.
And I don't know how I did as a coach, honestly. But I do have to say that I thought Daniel did a great job in the 30 seconds he had to say anything to me. It was almost like jarring. He was like, I need you to focus and like stay like present on what you're doing correctly. And it was I thought it was really good. That one sentence that he got to say was great. Thank you, Daniel.
Job, you guys. So, what I'm hearing is that you guys are doing a really good job and you are awesome at motivational interviewing. You just don't know how to identify what motivational interviewing you're doing. So, when you're expressing empathy and you are, celebrating and affirming, you don't necessarily know that you're using motivational interviewing, but that's a big part of what it is. And if we look back at the ores, Oh, there it is. Okay, so reflective listening is another one. So what I hear you saying is that you know you're not sure if you want to stay sober or return to use, or you're not sure if connection and community is going to work for you. And then of course Lacey mentioned open-ended questions. Just to kind of get things moving in that direction. And then summarizing. And I know you didn't get enough time to do all those things. So we're going to go back because I do want to talk about the role play itself. So the client comes in after the third appointment stating, "No one is supporting my recovery. My family is still drinking. I've been sober for 3 months." So this person's been sober for 3 months and is bored and lonely. So, you've mentioned pathways of recovery in the past, and they've just resisted it. Doesn't mean they've completely gone away with it. They've just resisted it. So they're 3 months sober, and they don't have any type of support system. And their environment, people are still drinking in their environment. And remember, rapid firing resources and ideas is not as important as helping them come up with some solutions. I have done this with a client that was so resistant, and I just kept being patient with them. And one day they were like, "You know what? I'm thinking about recovery housing." And it might have taken 2 or 3 sessions to get to that point, but she was ready to go to recovery housing. If I would have brought it up when she first told me this, I guarantee she would have said, "I'm not going. I'm not doing recovery housing." But if I use that motivational interviewing, and it's a dance, right? We're dancing to around that client to kind of get them to think, change talk. All right. Do you guys want to do this one more time then? All right, I think we got it. So I'm going to open you guys back up, and I will give you 5 minutes till 11:46.
We got everyone filtering in here now.
Daniel's laughing. Somebody did something funny. Either Daniel was being a pain in the butt or his client was. Nope, Daniel was, they said. All right, Daniel. I want to hear yours because the look on your face when you came back is intriguing.
Oh, good.
Daniel, were you the coach or the client?
I was the coach with Francie.
And Francie was your client?
Yep.
Okay, so Daniel, how did Francie do? What kind of MI principles or core skills did she use?
Well, she was sad, she didn't have support at home, and she was pretty defeated about the program in general, and she did a nice job of laying out that, I've heard it before too. I mean, we've all heard it, people who just they're not feeling good about the program or themselves, so they can really spin themselves into a dark corner.
So what stage of change was she in?
I think she was probably in contemplation.
How long had she been sober?
11 years.
Oh, okay. So do you think
Well, that's in reality. No, but she was, no, yeah, sorry.
No, the 3 months.
It was the 3 months. She played the role from the thing, yeah. So,
right.
But she was certainly not feeling AA. She hadn't found a community yet. She hadn't found meetings that spoke to her. There wasn't a lot of connection.
Was she ambivalent about whether she wanted to stay sober or not, or was she just talking about ideas for next steps and she just hadn't done anything
I think there was
yet?
an ambivalence there about the whole program in general.
What about you, Francie? Would you say contemplation or preparation?
I think contemplation.
Okay. And I have to say that it could be either. I'm kind of leaning towards preparation myself because if she wants to stay sober, she just doesn't have the support. If she's not talking about relapse or just returning to use, maybe she was. If she was, then that would be contemplation. Yeah. So, Francie, how did Daniel do as a coach? What was his principles or core skills of MI that he used?
That's a good question. I'm not sure because I got the timing wrong for when I came into the Zoom. So I'm not sure which ones he used, but he definitely reflected what I said. he shared a little bit of his relation and understanding about not feeling supported, because there's many people that experience it.
It could be considered empathy, would you say? Like, I can empathize because I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And encouragement and kind of talked solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I really am proud of you guys for being able to identify it in other people. And the challenge that I give you, if you choose to accept it, is for the next 7 days, I want you guys to practice using motivational interviewing with your family, your significant other, your children. This works excellent on teenagers who are about as resistant as they get. And so when you practice this motivational interviewing with your family, your friends, anybody who's coming to you with challenges and trying to figure out what to do, if you practice this, when you get in that room with your client, it's just natural conversation to you, and it becomes so much easier if you just practice it. When you start doing it with your significant others, they're going to look at you like, you know, like, wow, she's not coming at me being defensive. And, no, they're just asking good questions. And so, like, it lets people feel heard and validated when you use motivational interviewing. Good job, you guys. So, the cool thing that I like about motivational interviewing when it comes to the maintenance stage of change is that we really want to help them maintain stability. We talked about that, right? We're working our asses off. They're working their asses off. We're putting in all this work for 6 months, a year, or more. How do we get them to continue and maintain? So what do we do once a client? I think that's a challenge also, is once a client's doing everything they're supposed to do, what do we even say in session? Because I don't even know what to suggest or what to do because you're doing what you're supposed to. So we want to continue to strengthen their internal motivation. What's that, Kobe? Okay, so it strengthens their internal motivation as opposed to their external motivation. That if we can't get a client to move away from justice involved, CPS, my husband's going to leave me, if we can't get away from that external motivation into the internal, they're not going to make it. I'm just going to tell you, because eventually that's going to go away. It promotes ongoing self-reflection. If you teach a client about motivational interviewing and you teach a client about stages of change, do you think it will help them do their own self-reflection? Where am I at? How am I doing? Where do I want to go? It builds confidence and self-efficacy, and it helps navigate ambivalence. It supports adaptability to life changes, right? Those of us that have been sober a while, life changes all the time. And it strengthens the therapeutic relationship between you guys. And I think that's important for them to continue being able to come to us. So, one thing we have to remember is when you sit there and you take the time to review the goals and the action steps, we also need to go back and reflect and celebrate their achievements with them. If the last thing you say to them before they leave is what a good job they did with A, B, and C, that's what they're going to take with them. So, this is my information. The QR code is going to take you to my Blink, which is a digital business card. So it'll give you my email, phone number, all the stuff that's on the screen. So you can scan that. You can go ahead and screenshot the information. I love having contacts, and if you go to my Facebook page, Phoenix Professional Development Training, you will see the additional trainings that I have coming up. I am in the process of waiting for back surgery, so I don't have a ton of stuff scheduled. I have an RCA in August, and I'm thinking about doing maybe a spirituality next month, but with my limited comfortability, it makes it really hard. So I hope that you guys got something out of this, that you enjoyed it. And I'm sorry you didn't get more time to role play. It's funny. Because of RC, I think the RCA, we all get used to it and love the role playing and breakout. So Sorry, I couldn't do more. Any thoughts, questions, or comments?